Hello, everyone, and welcome to Transportation Talks. Transportation Talks is sponsored by the Transportation and Supply Chain Institute at the University of Denver. I'm Michelle Livingstone, and I have the privilege of being the moderator for the next 30 minutes. We had an opportunity in first quarter to hear from Shelley Simpson, the president of J.B. Hunt, and she talked about the secret sauce that made J.B. Hunt special and made associates feel like they belong. And in second quarter, we heard from Joe Hendricks, the CEO of CSX Railroad. Now, Joe is new to the transportation industry, and he's bringing with him from Ford what it's like to be a customer, and there's significant improvement in customer service as a result. He's also taking good care of his associates. And then today, I'm so excited that we have an opportunity to speak with Barbara Melvin, the Chief Executive Officer of the South Carolina Ports Authority. Will you please join me on camera, Barbara? Oh, it's great to see you. Welcome, welcome. We're so glad that you're here today.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And what an honor to be with you. You know, one of the pioneers for women in supply chain, and truly the University of Denver is lucky to have you involved with their programs.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. I feel the same about you. And I just want to, first of all, say congratulations on your recent recognition. I believe on Tuesday, you were recognized as the 2023 Women in Leader Award. If I may not have gotten that right, but let me just double check here. And it was the group that recognized you was the South Carolina Women in Leadership. And it's really important, I think, to be recognized as the 2023 leading woman. And what I thought was awesome is that you were recognized for working across party lines and for driving economic improvement within the state. So how exciting was that?
It was a lot of fun, an unexpected award, typically given to elected officials. So I think it kind of was a recognition in combination of my background before moving into supply chain, and then just a fantastic acceptance of how the South Carolina Ports Authority contributes positively to our state's economy.
Oh, well, I think that's terrific. I mean, it's great recognition for you. It's great recognition for the port. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So you talked about your background before coming into the ports. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get to where you are? But save the CEO for later here, because
I will. Thank you. So a bit unorthodox, I would say, is and you would probably agree with me. One of the few folks who didn't rise to the top of a port organization without having background in an ocean carrier position. So I was actually, grew up in Georgia, a political science major in college, always wanted to be involved in politics. So probably tied to this whole recognition of working across party lines. You know, my first job was working in Atlanta for Governor Miller's administration, and then got to move to Charleston in 1996 and worked for the Charleston Metro Chamber as a government relations person, and then was the first in-house lobbyist for the South Carolina Ports Authority. And frankly, it's a place where I stuck. You know, I've been at the South Carolina Port for 25 years in a variety of roles. And just really had the privilege of working in multiple departments inside of the South Carolina Ports Authority, and gave me just a really great appreciation for the variety of roles that we play here and how it all ties together. Because when you're dealing with the elected officials, you know, they just want to know how the boxes move in and out, and, you know, what's the next big infrastructure project you're going to build, and how can we help you? Because we have really great toys at the Ports Authority. And so you get a lot of interest that way. So it was probably one of the most unorthodox rises in supply chain and ports that you could imagine.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a little unorthodox, but you are certainly not the only person who has come into the transportation industry from a totally different field and been successful. So I think that's one of the things folks can appreciate and value from transportation and supply chain, is the fact that regardless of where you started, you can certainly make a big impact once you arrive in the industry. So congratulations on that. So one of the things that I just really appreciated about you and Jim Newsom, who was the CEO at the time, we all spoke on a panel at TPM several probably many years ago at this point. And one of the things that Jim talked about was his succession plan. He had a very well thought out and meticulous plan to ensure that he put his money on you, that you are going to be the next CEO. And first of all, I just love the support, and it must have been felt great to know that you had that type of support. But I also think that's very unorthodox. I mean, I don't know any other companies right off the top of my head who have had that degree of succession planning. And I think part of what has made you very successful, you mentioned having a number of roles within the port over your 25 years, but a lot of it seemed very orchestrated. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So, I love talking about this because it was the opportunity of a lifetime. And Jim Newsom is an icon and always will be in our industry. And he truly, when he arrived here at the South Carolina port, he had a vision of where he wanted us to be, and he executed on that vision. And it was an honor to be able to work alongside of him to execute that vision. And one piece of that was of huge benefit to me, which was he put his faith in me after we successfully completed our deepening project permitting. And he said, if you can navigate the federal government and regulatory agencies, then I really believe you can do anything. And so it was probably the longest interview process you could ever imagine. It was about 10 years worth of this investment that Jim and the board made in me to help me grow into a role beyond kind of an individual performer role, which is what you do as a government relations person, to being able to lead people as they promoted me into operations, which is, of course, the largest group inside of a port, and then on into this position. And that included, if you think about it, Michelle, and think back, you played a role in that, because I firmly believe in looking back over multiple things that I did. He had you interview me, so to speak, when you and I spent time together, and you were talking to me about being a part of the industry and what I saw, and you played a very big part of that for me as well. So again, doing this interview today is just an honor.
Well, it was certainly my pleasure, and I really enjoyed meeting you as well. And I think it's great that years later, we're still staying connected. And that's another real benefit of being in the industry. It's big, but it's small. So
Right.
Yes, we appreciate
It's a family for sure.
It is definitely a family. So tell me, you mentioned some of the things that you were working on. And I'm just curious, as one of the things you're working on is you developing your successor.
Yes.
Do you have a plan to do it the similar way?
I absolutely do. The impression that Jim's process made on me was lasting. It's very important to show people, teammates that work with you, that there is a path to growth. And I think that all organizations should look internally unless they can't. And we have such a talented team here at the Ports Authority that we have built during the last 2 decades. And I believe that my successor will come from within the port. I'm very hopeful for that. And we work every day, just like Jim gave me that opportunity. We work every day to grow our next generation of leadership. And that's really kind of one of the biggest roles a CEO plays, is to replace himself or herself with someone better than they are. And that's what I will look to do here, and have a very regimented path for that person so that they're set up for success, like I was given that very same opportunity.
Oh, that's great. And hopefully you won't be looking to move on to the next chapter in life anytime soon, because I know there's still so much you want to accomplish while you're there. And you went in that role in 2022, if I recall correctly. Is that correct?
Yes. But there is a shelf life for this as well. There should be. And, my next life will be selling suntan lotion in a tiki hut. And I'll be really happy to do that. And, you pray every day for the grace to know when to exit, because that next set of leadership is prepared and ready to take over.
Yes, no, I understand exactly where you're coming from on that, having been there myself. So, so as you think about the business, first of all, can you just tell us your take on the current economic conditions, and then from there talk more specifically about the port?
Absolutely. So I would say, current economic conditions are not as robust as they were, say, in 2022. But I think it'd be really hard for anyone to accomplish that type of growth in 1 year. And we saw that with that exorbitant growth in such a short amount of time came many other challenges with that opportunity. But what we're seeing from today is certainly down from that boom year, but still on pace with a record year that we had in 2021. And then also on pace with what we did last year, which if you combine that growth with what we saw in 2022, it's just a tremendous amount of opportunity for a port. And so what you can't do is look at long cycle business like investments in ports and performance in ports in these 2 and 3 year snapshots, because it will really kind of frighten you at times. Ports are indicators about economic cycles, and we all know that we have up times and down times. No matter what we do, those cycles will happen. And so we've just got to keep our eye on the ball and be excellent in our operations for our customers and continue to invest in our infrastructure, because it takes such a long time to bring those types of big public works projects online. You can't let a 2 and 3 year shift in volume knock you off your game.
Sure. But you have to appreciate in June and July, the volume growth at the port was strong. And are you seeing that trend to continue?
What we're seeing continue is kind of the steady volume that we saw in 23 and in 21. But the highlight for us truly has been that our imports are up, say, 9%, where the country's imports are down 8%. So that cargo that we attracted during the pandemic from just growth in general, or perhaps even market share from other ports, has stuck here in South Carolina. So that sticky cargo makes us really excited about our potential for additional import and export growth in the future.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm sure that's because of the great service that your customers are receiving through your port. Otherwise, they would have abandoned you in a hot minute. So
absolutely. Freight typically chases the best price as long as the performance is relatively the same. And I think, as you rightly say, we concentrate on that operational excellence for our customers. And that has clearly been noted along with our investments in infrastructure.
So speaking about your investments in infrastructure, you've got a couple of inland ports underway. Tell us about those and what you feel like that has done to help boost the South Carolina Port Authority.
Great. So we are so excited to talk about our inland port in Greer, South Carolina, which is on the Norfolk Southern line. It's about 10 years old now, and in less than 10 years achieved more than 1 million rail lifts. So for scale, most people consider an inland port to be successful if they do 30,000 to 40,000 rail lifts in 1 year. And we have consistently been above 100,000 rail lifts in Greer for multiple years. So much so that within 10 years, we have already initiated an expansion project for that inland port. And we successfully diversified the original cargo base there, which was BMW Manufacturing was our really original base tenant. And now they represent in total import and export volume about 30% of everything that moves through Greer. So it's a significantly successful story in diversifying your cargo that goes through there. And as you well know, you can't favor railroads. And on the East Coast, our second Class 1 railroad that serves us is CSX. And we also have an inland port on their rail line in Dillon, South Carolina, with a base tenant of Harbor Freight Tools and a very robust export market, where we see through that port the 30 to 40,000 rail lifts a year. So within our portfolio of 2 inland ports, we have highly successful examples of how you should look to move your freight inland to get it that 1 day or overnight train closer to its final destination as an alternative to just moving by truck. It's a very competitive way to move, and it really also stimulates economic development and growth around those facilities, because when ports make investments in inland, that what follows that is investments by other warehousing and shippers who need that service.
Sure. Well, as a former shipper, one day can make a difference. So appreciate your, your concentrated effort to continue improving that transit time.
Absolutely. And then I'll add, kind of one of our newest projects, as a major player on the East Coast, we were the last port to not have on-dock or near-dock rail because we sit in a multi-terminal footprint. Because we're so close to the open ocean, that creates advantages from the perspective of harbor depth, but disadvantages in being able to build a train from a singular container terminal. And so we have worked with our state, and this new facility is actually under construction that will serve both CSX and Norfolk Southern in a dual operated intermodal facility by the South Carolina Ports Authority. So this $400 million facility is under construction, as I said, and will open in July of 2025. And we think that that will continue to enhance our ability to attract intermodal cargo, which represents more than 20% of our total volume. So, rail cargo is where your discretionary cargo growth lies. And so it's, again, part of our vision and part of our infrastructure story.
Yeah, that's a great story to tell. And 2025 will be here before we know it for sure.
Yes.
So whether we
In the
want
blink
it
of
to be
an
that way
eye.
or not.
Yes. And frankly, a University of Denver graduate from your program. He is running Palmetto Railways now, Patrick McCrory. He's
Yes.
a significant part of that story for us at the intermodal facility near our new terminal. So he'll be participating in this new project with us as well.
Well, that is really exciting. Patrick is a very valuable board member, and we appreciate all of his insights. And I think that'll keep him off the streets and out of trouble for a little while. So that's great.
Absolutely.
So let's just talk about labor for a moment. The ILA contract doesn't expire until September of 2024. And I understand conversations are already underway, but the current environment is so prone to striking. It seems like, Kaiser Permanente is now striking. We have the auto worker strikes. We had the writers strike, all it just seems like the go-to as a strike. Are you at all concerned about the outcome of the 2024 contract period?
I would say that I am not concerned, and solely because I have watched how the leadership of the ILA, which governs the East and Gulf Coast, they've worked so hard during the last year to position the renewal of their master contract well before it expires in September of 24. And, if you look at history, we have not seen unrest on the East Coast and labor actions like we have seen demonstrated on the West Coast in the past. And I think it's a workforce that is proud on the Eastern Gulf to be a part of our industry. It's kind of a legacy generational impact here. And so I see a connection to our work that we do here on the Eastern Gulf, along with our port authorities, that makes me not concerned about how we'll perform. I don't want to be wrong on that, but I can only look at history to see that we tend to work things out in a very organized way as we move through our contracts. And it's only evidenced by how hard the leadership of the ILA on the Eastern Gulf work in advance of the expiration of the contract to try to put something great for their membership and for the ocean carriers in place before it expires.
Sure. Well, I certainly hope for the very best on that outcome. And I should pause here and just remind everyone who's participating in the call that you are welcome to submit questions via the Q&A, and we'll take as many of those as we can. And you also had an opportunity to submit questions prior to the event, and we had one that was submitted. So Barbara, I'm going to read this one to you, and we would appreciate your response to: what are your biggest workforce challenges currently, and what are you doing to address them? How have preferences of your frontline workforce changed in the past decade?
So I would say, Michelle, we're pretty lucky here in South Carolina. We have a healthy labor force and labor pool. in the middle of the pandemic, we were able to hire 150 operators that we trained and brought fully up to speed through both mentorship and training of existing operators and simulators that we've brought on board. We did not have a problem in hiring. Our turnover at the South Carolina port is well below the national average, less than 5%, usually ranges in between 3 and 5%. We try to create a great environment for our people. You know, you ask what has changed. I have certainly seen the desire among our workforce to have more balance in their life, to have the time to be with their family, have the time to have experiences. So we have adjusted in the way that we handle our shift work to allow for that, to allow for reliable time off, which in our industry, when you're really relying on ship schedules and things that can get off course, with a little navigational humor in there, can get off course for no good reason or no known reason. We've worked very hard to try to put some predictability and reliability in their schedules. I would say some challenges that you hear about today in other industries we're not facing because we never went home. So the thought of remote work and some of the attractiveness of that never crept into our workforce because we made the decision here that our operators can't go home and didn't have that opportunity. So we were all here as an administrative staff to support them, and we stayed here together. So, you know, I think we are meeting those challenges in different directions head on. We offer some additional services to our employees that others may not. We have food on site, healthcare on site. We have some other benefits that we provide for our workforce that once they get here, they kind of don't get to leave until their shift is over. So we think about those things, and we know we have to make our industry sexy and competitive as folks are looking at what their careers are going to be. So it's just something that we probably as leaders concentrate more on today than we had to do in the past. And we concentrate on drawing the linkages among all of the workforces, not just your own, that make supply chain successful.
Makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate you sharing that. So one of the things that is very exciting about you is that you are one of the 9% of female CEOs in the country. And if you take a look at the transportation industry specifically, you know, the percentage of women CEOs is less than that. One of the things I've always been personally passionate about is being able to attract more women and diverse labor to the transportation supply chain industries. I think it's absolutely the healthy thing to do. And can you just share your perspective on what you feel can and should be done to continue to attract women and minorities to this industry?
I join you in wanting to make sure we improve upon these numbers to where we're no longer looking at these numbers because it is the norm, not under 10%. And, you know, one of the things that I would like for our colleges and universities to be intentional about is when they are recruiting into supply chain, that they look at the diversity of their classes. Because on the professional side, if our colleges and universities aren't intentional, we're not able to hire more diverse leadership into our organizations. And we all know that that diversity is what makes for success at the top. You have to have that difference of opinion from a variety of people in your workforce, and that's what makes you a better organization. So I ask every time I can that our colleges and universities that have supply chain programs to be very intentional about how they offer scholarships and offer placement into this major so that we can work as quickly as possible to diversify what has always been a male-dominated industry.
Great advice. And I hope folks take heed to that. So thank you. And just talking about the university, I know you received your MBA from University of Tennessee. And one of the, I think, biggest struggles that folks have in terms of, hey, I'm working full time, I have a family, I've got all these external interests as well. How do you make time to go to school and work on a very robust master's program while trying to manage life? And is that a good use of my time? What do you say to folks who have that concern or challenge?
First thing I would tell you is it's okay to be terrified, because I was. But also when somebody offers you the opportunity to better yourself, you have to take it. They see something in you that you may not be able to see in yourself. And you grow in life by being uncomfortable, not comfortable. And if we start to measure out our time and what we think we can do versus what we should do, we would never take a good jump or a good risk. And so I just say, yeah, unless it absolutely wrecks your life, you make time for what is important, and anybody offering you an opportunity to better yourself is very important.
I totally agree. And I always say education is the one thing that no one can ever take away from you. So
That is exactly
yours
right.
forever.
Great
So,
advice.
I think that's really, really great. So we are winding down here, but I do just want to ask just two more quick questions. And that is, in an interview recently, you referred to yourself as a risk taker and a high flyer. And I love that description. But give me a couple of examples of how you characterize yourself as a risk taker and high flyer.
So I would add one thing in front of risk taker. It's probably an intelligent risk taker. So I take the time to understand an issue. And the great news about the maritime industry is you do not have to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I am absolutely an 80% person. If I understand the issue at about 80%, I have been blessed in my life with the ability to see a way to that goal. And so I'll run. I'll process the information and I will pick it up and I will run with it. But the important thing to remember is if you are a risk taker or a high flyer, you have to surround yourself with people who aren't just like you. You need a conservative, nervous person to say, well, wait a minute, what about this? And that's why that diversity of opinions and personalities and backgrounds is so important to have around you in your leadership circle, because you need to balance out somebody like me with somebody who does ask that other 20% of the question that you probably should be thinking about before you pick it up and run.
That is great advice. And we'll just end. I know Key West is one of your favorite places, and you mentioned about having a little suntan screen, it should be sunscreen booth.
Sunscreen lotion in a tiki hut, sure.
Yes. So tell me this, what is your favorite thing to do when you're in Key West, and what's your favorite restaurant?
Fishing is easily the most favorite thing that we do, my husband and I. And in Key West, my favorite restaurant would be Cafe Marquesa. And in Marathon, it would be Butterfly Cafe.
Okay, well, those are all great tips. So we appreciate that very much. So Barbara, I just want to say thank you once again for joining us today, and really appreciated your insights and comments. And it's going to be so fun to see what you accomplish here over the next 10 years. And it'll be fabulous. I know that for sure. So thank you for that.
What a pleasure.
Oh no, it's been great, and look forward to continuing to read all about you in the press. So thank you for that. And to everyone else, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. You will be able to see this interview along with the two that we've already talked about. That was Shelley Simpson and Joe Hendricks. They're all available on your favorite social media platform. If you just Google TSCI for Transportation Supply Chain Institute, you'll be able to find them there. And you're going to want to mark your calendar for December 12th, because we will have Lee Beard, SVP of Supply Chain for Swire Coke, and he's going to be a phenomenal interview as well. So please join me for that event, and you'll certainly see more about it being posted on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So on that note, Barbara, again, thank you so much. It was great to see you, and everyone else, I look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn. Bye.
Take care.
You too.